topic at the beginning of the session. But I just wanted to open by saying a very sincere thank you, obviously to Victoria for being able to share their practice and approaches with us, but for those of you attending as well, we are very, very aware how busy you all are. But this series of webinars really has been designed to be helpful. They were born of feedback we had from schools that no one felt they had all the answers, but everyone wanted to hear what everyone else was up to. So hopefully this will give an opportunity for that to happen. It really is for schools by schools. I'm sure you'll find it very interesting, and please, if you do have any questions, we'll make sure there's an opportunity at the end for you to ask anything that might have occurred to you during the presentation. So you'll be relieved to know that I'm going to mute myself now and you won't have to listen to me talk for any longer, and I am going to hand over to Victoria to tell you all about their approach to effective communication and feedback. Diolch.
Thanks, Louise. Hello all, I'm Sam Daniels, the head teacher of Victoria Primary School in Penarth, and I'm actually joined today by some members of my SLT. So we've got Simon Husband, the deputy, Jane Hall, the Elenco, Rachel Davis, the IT lead, and Laura Halliwell, the FP literacy leader. So we thought today we'd talk to you about communication, feedback, and the absolutely vital role they've played in securing a successful online experience for our families. So I'll give you a little bit of context first. So we're a very large primary school with 504 pupils on roll, and we have a really mixed catchment area with 9% free school meals and 7% on the ALN register. Can you change the slide, please, Rach? Brilliant, thank you. So as a school, I think we've always prided ourselves on clear and frequent feedback, and we do use a variety of methods in order to include all of our families, so such as texts, emails, Twitter, Google Forms we've used quite a lot recently, weekly newsletters and phone calls. But in September, we realised that despite our history of successful communication, we did need to pull out all of the stops in order to support our families and each other during these uncertain times. So we began by very early communication, setting out the remote learning offer for the school and a clear rationale for the reasons why we had chosen this approach. However, it actually didn't end there. So at every period of bubble self-isolation, so we had 2 altogether, we resent out the key information, but then we took on board the parent evaluations and we tweaked the offer accordingly. And that's actually happened throughout the academic year. So it was communication, evaluation, and then communication again. So it wasn't just this is our offer and left it there. It's been very much a two-way conversation between parents and then ensuring that we take on board their ideas and then re-communicate what's happened. And like I said, it has been really important to use a variety of different communication approaches. And we know that transparency and effective communication, which works both ways, has been crucial in ensuring that our staff and families have felt fully supported at every turn. So I'm now going to hand over to Rachel Davis, who will talk about the learning offer specifically at Victoria.
Hi, I'm going to be talking about the daily communication, so the bread and butter that gets our children and our staff through their journey whilst they are at home. So we start off with our staff training workshops, which we hosted on an inset day. And we dedicated our inset day to delivering 4 workshops to develop staff skills and confidence with activities to help with our blended learning journey. In those workshops, we organised it whereby we had 30-minute sessions, and the teachers then had that valuable time of looking at the skills learned in those sessions and try to embed them and think how could they use that in their practice. So the workshops we used on those days, on that day, sorry, was Google Forms, the Bitmoji Classroom, Screencastify and recording PowerPoint. From there, I think it really did help our staff with developing their confidence so that when we were faced with the situation of, as Mrs. Daniels said, closing classrooms and bubbles, they were able to embed that into their practice. And we've actively then communicate then through our WhatsApp group or on email, the dialogue about how we would improve different IT skills. And for example, if a staff member then has found a new piece of software or an easier way of doing something to improve their workload, then they have naturally got to a point where they would share that in WhatsApp or on an email and say, oh, look, I've managed to learn this. And it's been just so great because the confidence in our staff over the last 12 months with their IT skills has enabled our school to be able to offer a variety of approaches in our Google Classroom practice whilst schools have been closed. And, you know, I think having, you know, teachers then have been able to take what they would like from that. Some teachers may think, oh, yes, that's a brilliant skill. Thank you so much. And others may think, oh, maybe I'll look at that at another point. And with that as well, the teachers then have felt confident enough also to record themselves sharing their skills with the staff members. So that staff communication with each other then has enabled us again to strengthen those skills and then make us ready and prepared for what we had to provide for the children. So our morning registration happens every day via Google Meet and is organised via a rolling timetable for each year group, so that all children can attend even if they are sharing devices. Children are expected to attend their registration time, which helps us with checking well-being and maintaining good communication with our pupils. Teachers then can communicate expectations for the day, as well as just chat to the children, performing activities such as simple games, exercise routines and show and tell. It has also been a great chance for celebration and sharing. For example, in Year 5, we communicated in our weekly learning overview that their registration would be extended on a particular day just before half term. And this gave the children, you know, the chance and the parents to know that we would be doing the registration for longer, and also gave them a chance to prepare for that. They would share what it was at the point, their magical wands that they'd made for a Harry Potter project. The children were able to share their wands, and then the other children then were able to communicate and, you know, take our marking policy that we normally have in school and tickle each other pink, which was wonderful for them to be able to experience that and to have that valuable peer feedback that we know that they really engage with when they are in school. We also use Google Meet for a pit stop. This is an additional opportunity for children to communicate with their teacher, a chance for questions and answers about their work, but also a great pastoral care opportunity. We've developed sound communication within videos that are recorded to support the teaching of the lesson and communicate expectations. Just like live teaching, we are able to teach the children and model examples of work, enabling differentiation where necessary. And lastly, I'd like to talk about our verbal and written feedback, which has been a huge success on this occasion during this lockdown period. Children and parents are able to communicate on the class stream and via private message in Google Classroom, as I'm sure you are aware of if you're using that in your school. But during this lockdown, we also used a Google Chrome extension called Mote, and this had a profound impact on our ability to communicate with the children. It allows you to record verbal feedback in response to the work that has been handed in, and you may well be using it in your school too. You can use this to explain an answer to a question, as well as record it on other parts of Google Classroom. For example, you can record your voice on the Google Classroom stream. Enabling the child to hear positive feedback from the teacher had a profound impact on well-being, and we had many positive messages off the parents to let us know how their child's face had lit up upon hearing the messages left for them. So I'll now show you some of the quotes that we have had. Here you can read around these yourselves, but I will just choose two just to read out loud. So I've just put a question mark there, but so-and-so has just walked off with a big smile on his face hearing your message, so thank you. And another one, he's been absolutely fantastic reviewing all homework and giving really helpful feedback. The child has particularly liked the voice notes that he leaves. And as I'm sure you would agree, you know, hearing feedback from the teacher through their actual voice rather than reading a message from the teacher is what the children are used to. And we feel as though that it has had a huge impact on their self-esteem. It has enabled us to communicate with the children how they've been doing that day, and also how they can help with any work that perhaps maybe they need a little bit more assistance on. But most importantly, it's helped us to maintain a positive relationship between the staff and pupils, which then hopefully when we are back in school together things will be able to flow naturally again. So if you are looking into downloading Mote, just one last thing, you may need to lift some sort of parameters within your school, but if you contact Hub, they will be able to help you. Okay, I'm now going to pass you on to Laura. Okay. And it will come now. There we go.
Thank you, Rach. So I'm going to talk about reading the signs of pupils during our online learning. So as both Sam and Rach have said earlier, communication has been the key to successfully keeping our children learning. Our 2 live sessions each day are a vital part of monitoring the children's well-being and engagement. As some children are confident and will happily express how they are feeling or share their understanding of any activities, but others, just like in the classroom setting, can be reluctant to say. Naturally, our staff have tuned into using these sessions to read the verbal and non-verbal clues that our children are giving us. This can be as simple as a child looking upset or not engaging on a particular day, to noticing patterns of engagement across the day or week. A particular example comes from our Year 2 classes. Both Year 2 teachers started to notice that the number of children joining registration and check-in sessions dropped as the week went on, with a particular dip on Wednesdays. This was mirrored in the number of activities children were handing in through the week too. Children who were joining the meets were looking less engaged than at the start of the week. This had been the pattern for a couple of weeks, and the staff didn't want it to continue in this way. The issue was highlighted and brought to the attention of Sam. On reflection, the staff realised that the issue arose for a number of reasons. Firstly, the natural excitement of seeing classmates and teachers after the weekend was wearing off as the week progressed. Next, the children were getting fed up with the routine of some of the activities being set. And finally, the whole situation of lockdown and online learning was just beginning to take its toll. A stint of particularly bad weather wasn't helping either. An email was sent to parents explaining what the teachers had noticed and what they wanted to do to address it. The normal timetabling wasn't working and some light relief was needed. The teachers decided to set a project for the afternoon sessions for the following week based on their theme of Beatrix Potter. The challenge was to create Mr. McGregor's garden in any way they wanted. The clear communication with parents got them on board, which in turn, with our teachers' enthusiasm on their Monday morning meet, really got the children excited for home learning once again. Time was given for the children to celebrate each other's work, and the pride the children took in sharing their work was clear during this session. This small change in approach made a significant impact on the engagement, enjoyment, and the quality of work the children produced. You can see some of the fantastic work that the children created from their project on the next slide. There we are, some lovely. They've collaborated with their parents, and had a go on their own, but the work, they were so engaged and really wanted to show. As staff, pre-COVID, we've always been given the freedom to say when something isn't working and the ability to change and come up with solutions. This hasn't changed with home learning, and reading the signs of pupils has been more important than ever. A similar pattern of numbers falling at the end of the week for live sessions was noted in our reception classes. So staff responded by bringing in fancy dress Fridays, singing and dancing sessions, and a firm favourite, the socks and no socks game. This kept numbers balanced through the week, and all activities were enjoyed by the children and even their parents. Throughout the school, staff have been sharing ideas and adapting plans when needed, building on the good practice. Other ways staff have responded to pupils has been messaging or phoning children who haven't looked themselves during the live session, or handing in fewer activities than normal. Because we have such open communication with parents and pupils and a number of communication channels to choose from, this is a simple thing to do that can make a big difference. By keeping a close eye on the subtle signs from our children and a flexible approach to teaching and learning, we have managed to keep our children engaged, learning, and most importantly, happy. I'm going to pass you on to Simon now, who will talk about reading the signs from parents.
Thank you, Laura. So when we first went into lockdown in March 2020, seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? What we provided for children was more a diet of online activities rather than online learning. The speed at which things happened took everyone by surprise, and so our efforts went into planning activities and tasks to keep children occupied at home. We were covering skills from the new curriculum in lessons, also ensuring that children's well-being was uppermost in our minds. But I think we all recognise we had a long way to go to improve our remote teaching. During this period, staff tried out new technologies and innovative ways of sharing resources. Now, one of the great things about working in this school is the collaborative and supportive nature of the staff. And I think through the last year, they've become closer as they've been more open with each other about asking for help and support, mainly in relation to IT issues. So when things returned to some semblance of normality and children and staff returned to school, we realised that our approach to online learning needed to be tweaked. So as Rachel mentioned earlier, an inset day was planned to upskill teachers, but crucially, we also gave training to the children in the classroom, showing them how to use these apps, so it became part and parcel of their normal learning experience. So as 2021 dawned and we were faced with yet another lockdown, we hit the ground running and felt more confident and comfortable teaching the children remotely. It was a far more professional online learning approach. And I think that for some parents, they were shocked by this and a little overwhelmed. The fact that there were activities set all day and the focus was not on keeping the children busy, but it was about improving the children's learning. It wasn't long into the spring term that we received correspondence from some parents saying that they were feeling a little overwhelmed from juggling their responsibilities as working parents with homeschooling their children once again. Now, during 1 week in particular, Sam received quite a few emails and letters from parents. It came as a shock realization. These parents, they were so isolated, they were so worried about perhaps losing their jobs, might be having little or no support at all. Now, we do a good job of helping the children deal with their emotions, but sometimes it's the parents who need that TLC and an arm around their shoulders. So we wanted to get them on side and show that we really cared for them and understood their situation. Sam told the staff that she was going to write a letter to parents and asked us what types of things should be in it. Many of us, our parents, know firsthand of the difficulties, the trials and tribulations of homeschooling, and we wanted to convey this understanding in the letter, as well as mentioning practical things that parents could do with their children, not necessarily linked to Google Classroom. The letter suggested that children attend at least one of the live teaching sessions each day, so they could catch up with their teachers and their friends, and also attempt at least 2 tasks. The task often had pre-recorded videos, so that parents could work with their children at times more convenient to them. This was particularly pertinent for parents working from home. We said that parents could also supplement children's learning by doing other activities, such as nature walks, baking cookies, or looking for bugs in the back garden. We stressed that children learn in different ways, not solely from directed tasks. The letter made a point of saying that it was important for parents to focus on keeping their family unit happy and healthy, and as a school, we would do our best to support them. The letter reassured parents that the skills that children were using and developing at this present time would equip them well in the future and help them to deal with sudden and unprecedented change, how to be brave, how to manage their emotions, and how to face uncertainty and overcome frustration and adapt to the ever-changing world. The letter struck a chord with many parents who appreciated it. Many replied very personally, expressing quite a lot of emotion and a lot of thanks. I must admit that reading some of the letters was quite a humbling experience. So I'm now going to pass on to Jane, who's going to talk to you about the different support that we offer to parents of vulnerable pupils.
Thank you, Simon. So for us, the week that we found out that we were closing for the first lockdown, obviously one of our main concerns was how we were going to continue to be able to support and monitor our vulnerable children and families. We had significant concerns about the impact of school closures on our most vulnerable, some of whom were probably about to be confined to quite challenging home environments. So the identification was really important to these vulnerable children. And for this, we used a variety of safeguarding information that we hold in school. So a combination of day-to-day concerns from safeguarding logs, police protection notices that we'd received, those under social services and the looked after children, than those who have accessed or were considering accessing Families First support. Our vulnerables also included children with a statement of educational needs and those children with ALN, where we felt that the online learning element created an additional barrier to their learning. And as well as these more obvious, clear-cut groups of vulnerable children, we have used our professional instinct as well, our previous experiences and knowledge of families. So maybe families where we just have an inkling that without the day-to-day monitoring and the involvement of school, there is an increased risk of children not engaging and going off radar, so to speak. And as time's gone on, further school closures have meant continued disruption to the daily lives of other children who we had not previously deemed vulnerable as such, but now we do recognise that lots, and some would say all, of our children have in fact gone through or are going through some level of trauma. So from lost routines, reduced social and family contact, not being able to access the things that usually support their well-being, as well as their face-to-face learning, to some children experiencing family breakups, parents losing employment or their own businesses, and family bereavement. So throughout the school closures and periods of self-isolation as well, it's been really important to us that we as a school act as a hub of support for all of our families, and really for the parents and carers as much as for the children. So once we'd identified the children, we organised our provision and support, which, like the online teaching, has grown and become more effective over time and with experience. Our provision has included obviously the hub school for our most vulnerable children, and we obviously get to cite those children regularly. We've provided a variety of technology support, and not only for staff, but in the way of many Google Classroom lessons for parents and carers as well, either face-to-face by invitation into school, or over the telephone or video calls. Where language has been a barrier in some cases, we've been able to use interpreters to engage with those families. And although the large majority of children are accessing their learning online, we have also acknowledged that some families are more likely to engage if they're not faced with their own technology barriers. And in these cases, where every other avenue has been pursued, we've delivered paper work packs to homes as well. So recognising that our ALN children are included in the vulnerable category, Hub is also attended part-time by 2 statemented children who were allocated their one-to-one learning support assistance daily, 9 till 12. And for our other ALN children, we had a variety of support mechanisms in place. So differentiated individual work folders on the Google Classroom, daily Google Meets, video calls with their one-to-one LSA, in which they would help to deliver the lessons and support their learning. And where this hasn't been effective for the children, we have provided one-to-one sessions for children in school as well, for face-to-face support, which has been really invaluable for maybe an hour at a time. And obviously these children are kept separate from Hub. For our children who usually receive wellbeing support, where appropriate, we've provided weekly telephone calls, and this is from teachers and LSAs. And sometimes it's to the children, sometimes it's to the parent, or both. In some cases, video calls we've used to help with issues such as anxiety and self-esteem, and these are generally activities adapted from the ELSA sessions they would usually use, or just simply catch-up calls, which parents have fed back as being quite powerful. Most recently, in the last few weeks, we've designed a little wellbeing questionnaire just to gather some information from the children, and from that we've identified children who have communicated a lack of any contact with their friends aside from the Google Meets arranged by school. And with that information, we've now started online friendship groups with those particular children, and already they're proving to have a really positive impact on the children's wellbeing, which is brilliant. So I've got communication down on this slide as a separate box, but I do think that communication is actually a provision in itself, and it's been a huge part of our success during these times. For us, how we communicated with the families has been key to keeping our learners safe and their well-being a priority all the way through COVID, when schools have been open as well as closed. And from the very start, we recognised that one size does not fit all. So during the first week of school closure, we set a schedule of weekly telephone calls for all of our identified vulnerable families, and we logged all communication. We ensured all the information was shared with all the relevant staff and other agencies as well, if necessary. During the first week of schedule calls, we were quickly able to assess each family's communication preferences, their needs, and we adjusted our plan appropriately. And this really was key to ensuring successful ongoing engagement throughout. We already had an open door policy as a school, and throughout the COVID experience, our most vulnerable families have had direct telephone lines to the leads of the safeguarding team. And all parents are able to contact all teaching staff directly via their emails. And this has been managed really well by establishing trust and positive relationships early on. It has meant finding the right tone and being active listeners, being a sympathetic ear, having a giggle or sometimes even a cry with parents and carers, and together sharing frustrations of daily life as it is at the moment. It has meant many out of hours phone calls and text messages and emails. It's meant facilitating connections with other families so they can connect with each other, clothing donation drop-offs, helping organise food vouchers, and where necessary, house visits, and generally being prepared to go the extra mile for the well-being of all of our families. And I just wanted to finish by reading a couple of quotes and feedback from these vulnerable families that we have, which actually really make it all worthwhile. So this one is from a parent of a child who comes in she has video support, but she also has in-school support. And she says, "We just wanted to let you know how utterly delighted S was to receive her Star of the Week award. The tailored work, voice memo feedback, recorded instructions and individual support she receives make an absolutely huge difference to her and enabled her to access her work so much more successfully. Miss W's support transforms the learning experience for her, and we cannot thank you enough. Thank you all, it means the world to us and we really appreciate it." And then these are just a couple of text messages that we've had. "You've been absolutely great. Thank you so much again. I couldn't be more proud of the school B goes to and the teachers that are there. You've been absolutely amazing. You're not just teachers, you are mums as well. Couldn't ask for any better." And the last one, "I know he has a mum and dad, but Victoria Primary School has been amazing and helped us be the best parents we can be." Thank you. I'll hand back to Sam now.
Oh, thanks, Jane. I think if I had to put it into a sentence, I think the success of remote learning at Victoria has truly been a community effort. So staff, governors, parents and children talking together, listening together and learning together. So we're going to finish by looking at a few quotes taken from the 100% positive communication that we have received from parents. So I just want to read the one that says, "Thank you once again for taking the time to respond to my email and allow me the freedom to voice my concern. It's comforting to know that you take the time to listen and reassure parents." And I think that's so important, that not only have we communicated what we are doing, but we have actively listened to our parents and to our children in order to adapt what our offer is and how we support the people who are part of our school community. Thank you for listening to our journey. We are happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.